Sometimes, life places you at a crossroad where there is no turning back. I was standing in the dust-choked attic of my childhood home in Ohio, a place I hadn't stepped into for 2 decades. My hands were trembling as I cleared the cobwebs from a heavy oak box. On the lid, in my mother's elegant, cursive handwriting, were the words, "For Ethan." Only for Ethan. My mother, Sarah, had passed away 20 years ago. Cancer had stolen her from us far too soon. But today, as I pried the box open, I found a letter. It was a letter she had written shortly before her death, sealed with a single instruction: do not open until you are ready to forgive. My breath hitched in my throat. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. How was this possible? I tore open the yellowed envelope with shaking fingers. The first sentence was enough to pull the earth from beneath my feet. "Ethan, I know that today you feel alone, and you believe your father hates you. But the truth is not what you see. It never was." I turned around slowly. Through the attic door, I could see my elderly father, Thomas, sitting silently in the hallway, staring out the window at the setting sun. This was the man I hadn't spoken more than 10 words to in 20 years. This was the man I blamed for my mother's lonely death. This letter had just opened a door to a reality that was about to shatter everything I thought I knew about my life. Growing up in that small Ohio town, life felt like a dream. My mother was the sun; she knew how to bring color to the grayest winter days. My father was a hard-working man, a mechanic who smelled of grease and honest labor. But when I turned 12, the dream ended. The diagnosis came like a thunderclap. Hospital corridors, the sterile smell of antiseptic, and a silence that began to rot the very walls of our home. I remember the night she died. My father walked out of her room, his eyes like hollow stones. He didn't say a word to me. He didn't offer a hug or a tear. He just walked into his study and locked the door. From that moment on, he changed. He became a man with a machine for a heart. He stopped laughing. He stopped tucking me in. He even stopped saying my name. I spent my teenage years convinced that he simply couldn't handle the grief. I thought he looked at me and saw the ghost of the woman he lost, and it made him bitter. So, I started hating him back. I felt he had abandoned me when I was a child drowning in sorrow. As soon as I turned 18, I left. I went to college in New York and stayed there. I built a career, a life, and a wall around my heart. I only came home once a year for Christmas, a hollow tradition. We would sit at the same table, eating in a silence so thick it felt like suffocation. I treated him like a stranger, and he accepted it with a stoicism that only fueled my anger. But now, he was sick. His heart was failing. I had come back to settle his affairs. I expected to find nothing but old receipts and bitterness. Instead, I found this letter. "Ethan," the letter continued, "your father made a promise. A promise that forced him to pull away from you, so that he could save you. I drove through the night, the headlights of my car cutting through the fog like a surgeon's knife. The address led me to a defunct medical clinic in a remote part of Pennsylvania. Inside, I met a retired doctor, Dr. Harris, who looked at me with a strange sense of recognition. "So, you're Ethan," he whispered, his voice like dry parchment. "Thomas told me you'd come. He said you'd find the box eventually." He led me to a back room and pulled out a dusty file. It was mine. Dated June 2005. I had been diagnosed with a rare, aggressive blood disorder as a child. A condition that required an experimental and incredibly expensive treatment that insurance wouldn't touch. "Your mother was dying," Dr. Harris explained. "She knew she wouldn't see the next year. But she discovered your illness. Your father didn't have the money. But he made a pact. In those years when I thought my father was cold and distant, he was working 3 jobs. But more than that, he had entered a private medical debt agreement. To pay for my survival, he took on dangerous and exhausting labor no one else would accept, working double shifts in the harshest conditions to cover the unpayable costs of my cure. My mother, in her final days, had begged him for something impossible. She was terrified that if I grew up knowing my life was bought with my father's suffering, I would live in a prison of guilt. She made him promise to never tell me. He had to be the bad guy to keep me at a distance so I wouldn't see the physical toll the labor was taking on him. He took the insults and the hatred because it meant the secret was safe. My vision blurred. I ran back to my car, the cold air stinging my lungs. Every memory of my father was rewritten in a second. I sped back to Ohio, praying that the clock wouldn't run out. I burst through the front door. My father was still in his chair. I walked over and fell to my knees at his feet, placing the letter on his lap. He looked down at the paper. "You weren't supposed to find that yet, Ethan," he said, his voice a mere shadow. "Why?" I choked out. "Why did you let me hate you for 20 years? He reached out and touched my hair. "Because your mother was right," he whispered. "If you had known, you would have stayed here. You wouldn't have become the man you are. I didn't want you to owe me your life. I wanted you to just live it." He showed me a diary. Every newspaper clipping of my promotions, every milestone I thought he had ignored. He had been watching from the shadows the entire time. "I loved you enough to let you hate me," he said. Those words shattered me. I realized that for 20 years, I had been mourning a mother who was gone, while ignoring a father who was sacrificing everything for me. We sat there for hours, the moon rising high over the Ohio fields. For the first time, we talked. He passed away 3 months later. But those 3 months were worth more than the 20 years we lost. I didn't let him spend one more second thinking he was unloved. I learned that true heroism doesn't look for applause. It looks like a tired man who chooses to be misunderstood so his child can be free. Life is terrifyingly short. We spend so much time nurturing our grudges, not realizing that the other person is carrying a burden we can't even imagine. Today, I carry that letter in my pocket. It reminds me that love is often loudest in the things that aren't said. Real love doesn't need a voice, it only needs a heart willing to break in silence for the sake of another.